welcome. I'd like to thank all of you for coming to the MAC this morning. And it's a particular pleasure to welcome Tánaiste and Gilmore, who's going to be addressing you in a moment after you hear from me. We're very, very lucky to have Eamon here, given the pressing time during the Irish presidency with many commitments. Very much welcome his participation in this event today. And I'd also like to welcome Dan Gordon, who's going to be helping us run the question and answer session later on. So reflecting on what we've come here today to discuss, I'd like to start by emphasising that British-Irish relations are probably better now than they've ever been. And I'm pleased to say that the Tánaiste and I work closely together on a number of really important issues relating to Northern Ireland. And I'm sure I can speak for both of us in welcoming the fact that we have so many young people with us here today, representing the generation that's grown up since the political settlement here changed Northern Ireland forever. Earlier this month, we marked here the 15th anniversary of the Belfast Agreement, or the Good Friday Agreement, as some prefer to call it. The anniversary gave us the opportunity to reflect on the many successes delivered by the agreement and its successors at St Andrews in 2006 and Hillsborough in 2010. A chance to remind ourselves of how far we've come since the days when terrorism was an almost daily fact of life and claimed victims in every corner of Northern Ireland. So we all of us owe a huge debt of gratitude to those in successive British, Irish and US governments who were crucial to driving that peace process forward. And we owe that debt in even greater measure to those in Northern Ireland's political leadership who showed outstanding courage and leadership in making the difficult compromises needed to reach a deal. They proved that even resentments and concerns dating back hundreds of years can be resolved if you're prepared to sit round a table and talk to one another. And few would say that the settlement was perfect, but it is rightly recognised as a very powerful example of how democracy can triumph over terror. The agreement settled age-old constitutional questions on the basis of consent. It delivered inclusive, power-sharing institutions that reflect the diversity of modern Northern Ireland and established common sense and effective arrangements to enable North and South to work together on matters of mutual interest. Above all, the Belfast Agreement and its successors saw the decommissioning of paramilitary weapons and an end to the terrorist campaigns of violence that had blighted life in Northern Ireland for 30 years. That means that now we have the opportunity to move politics forward, away from the politics of identity to the politics of delivery. The stability achieved through the agreements provides the space for politics here to focus on the issues that impact on everyday life in Northern Ireland in the same way that they do across the rest of the UK, things like schools and jobs and pensions and the environment. So this month's 15th anniversary should prompt us to look towards the future and consider what we should be striving to achieve over the next 15 years. And the history of this island has often seen periods when many young people feel they have to go overseas to fulfil their aspirations and find the career opportunities they want. And sadly, Northern Ireland has had experience of that. While this is a government that backs aspiration, we're on the side of people who want to work hard and get on in life. So, of course, a key priority for us and for the executive is fixing the economy and, in so doing, ensuring that there are more job opportunities right here in Northern Ireland for today's young people. That's why we're so determined to deal with the legacy of debt from the years when the Labour government spent more than the country could afford and left us with the largest deficit in our peacetime history. So we're bringing down the deficit, and that has kept interest rates at record lows. We're reducing business taxes, but also at the same time cracking down on abusive tax avoidance by big business. We're taking the lowest paid out of income tax altogether and investing in science, technology and research to equip our country to compete in the global race for jobs and investment. And at the same time, we've continued to provide high levels of financial support to the executive right here in Northern Ireland. 900 million has been added to the executive's budget since the 2010 spending review, and public spending per head in Northern Ireland continues to be 20% above the UK average. But I think we all agree that we need a stronger private sector here. which is why the government is working with the Northern Ireland Executive on our shared goal of rebalancing the economy. To achieve that, we must have an economy that rewards hard work, promotes enterprise, and values wealth creation. If we fail to create a competitive environment for business, then wealth creators and entrepreneurs will simply go elsewhere. We're in a global race, and only those economies which are dynamic and flexible will succeed. And many economic responsibilities now rest with the executive, and I applaud the efforts that they've made on the economy, particularly on inward investment. From phenomenal success in the aerospace industry through to bringing the Iron Throne and the Seven Kingdoms of Westeros to Harland and Wolff's old Paint Hall in Belfast, Northern Ireland continues to punch above its weight in attracting high-quality investment from around the world. But reviving the economy isn't enough. We also need to build a more cohesive society if the hopes and aspirations envisaged by the Belfast Agreement are to be fully realised. As I go around Northern Ireland, I see many great examples of projects that bring together people from different backgrounds. Yet despite that valuable work, there are still deep-seated divisions in parts of Northern Ireland society. Whenever sectarian tensions spill into street violence, that's distressing and disruptive for those living in the areas affected, which are often the most economically disadvantaged in Northern Ireland. And this kind of lawlessness also sends a very negative message around the world that does real damage to Northern Ireland's ability to compete. And of course, it is depressing that some of those involved in the disorder and sectarianism weren't even born when the first ceasefires occurred and the peace process started in earnest. So that confirms beyond doubt that the passing of time won't be sufficient on its own to bridge long-standing sectarian divides. Looking ahead, we'll need a sustained effort to build a society based on mutual respect for all citizens, regardless of their community background. A society that's free of the blight of sectarianism, intimidation, and paramilitary violence, and where the rule of law is paramount. And a society that says it's not where you come from that matters, but where you're going and what you can contribute. Policies to develop better community relations rightly rest with the executive. But the government's always said we stand ready to support and help where we can. The Prime Minister takes a personal interest in these matters. And one of the reasons why he took the decision to bring the G8 leaders to County Fermanagh was because he wanted to show off to the world what a great place Northern Ireland is and how much it has to offer. And following the meeting between the Prime Minister and the First and Deputy First Ministers in March, I'm working with the Executive on a substantial new economic package alongside measures to build a more cohesive and stable society. This package is in addition to the support Northern Ireland already receives from the UK government. So we're considering issues like how to make enterprise zones a more attractive option. We're looking at how to improve access to bank finance and how we can give the Executive further help in taking forward infrastructure projects. And the Executive is looking at developing economic and social measures, including work on building a shared future in Northern Ireland. It's a two-way street. The greater the Executive's ambition, the more the UK government will be able to do to help. This is about partnership and cooperation, and I'm optimistic about the chances of achieving a really good outcome for Northern Ireland. So in conclusion, before I hand over to the Tánaiste, let's never forget the effort, courage and leadership that went into bringing Northern Ireland to where it is today. But let's also recognise that there is still vital work to be done to build a stronger economy and a really shared society. The 19th century saw Ulster flourish as Victorian engineering and technology changed the world forever, with Belfast becoming a byword for enterprise and innovation. With the peace and the stability the Belfast Agreement has brought, there's no reason why Northern Ireland can't once again become a vibrant economic success story. But there is still urgent need for progress towards reconciliation, mutual understanding, and mutual trust. We should all consider ourselves custodians of the Belfast Agreement. The stability it has brought should never ever be taken for granted. We all have an enduring responsibility to the people of these islands to make the devolved settlement work for the benefit of everyone, so that we can secure a stable, prosperous, and peaceful Northern Ireland for the young people of today and for future generations. And don't doubt the determination of the UK government to work in partnership with the Executive and with the Irish government to achieve that goal that we all so strongly support. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I'm delighted to be here this morning with the Secretary of State, Theresa Villiers, for what I think is a very important gathering. We're here almost 15 years to the day that the Good Friday or the Belfast Agreement was signed. There are many people in this room who remember exactly where they were when the Good Friday Agreement was concluded. I watched it on television. But I think more importantly, there are people in this room who can't remember the signing of that agreement at all, either because you weren't born or you were just about born. And I think there are a couple of things that we need to remember about it. The first is that it didn't happen by accident. The overwhelming majority of people on Northern Ireland, the overwhelming majority of people throughout the island of Ireland and throughout Britain wanted it to happen, wanted a peaceful society, be able to get on with their lives, and to be free of violence and conflict. A number of political leaders who showed great courage wanted it to happen. And even though from time to time as the talks went on, many times they broke down and sometimes they looked as though they had broken down irretrievably, they stuck with it and kept with it until they got that agreement. And they were helped by people overseas, people like President Clinton in the United States, Senator George Mitchell, former President of Finland, Martti Ahtisaari, who helped and encouraged political leaders to stick with the talks and to achieve that agreement. It was a great achievement. It brought to an end 30 years of conflict and killing. It laid a basis for a peaceful society in Northern Ireland. There has, of course, been a lot of progress since then. There have been, as the Secretary of State has said, additional agreements which have added to it. St Andrews, Hillsborough. There's been great progress in the relations on the island. The Irish government has no better or stronger relationship than we do with the Northern Ireland Executive. There is no other set of political leaders outside of our state that we meet more frequently and have deeper conversations with than we do with the Northern Ireland Executive. We have a North-South Ministerial Council that meets on a regular basis across ministers, doing work, cooperating to try and build a better country, North and South. The relations between Ireland and Britain have never been better than they are at present. And that's reflected not just in the amount of trade that passes between the two islands, over €1 billion a week in trade between the two islands. It's cooperation at European Union level and in international fora. We've established a parliamentary association, both between Britain and Ireland and indeed between North and South, meeting regularly. There is, of course, more that needs to be done. We've committed to having a Languages Act, we've committed to having a Bill of Rights, committed to establishing a civic forum. All of that is work that has to be done. But all of that is at the political level, at the institutional level. And I think that at 15 years on into this agreement, what we need to be looking at now is where it takes us for the future. I remember when I was growing up, when I was 15, 16, and I suppose political opinions forming and views forming about, where the country should go and where the world should go. I remember people talking to me about the Civil War. Politics in the South, when I was growing up, when I was 15 or 16, was dominated by the Civil War. Where did you stand in the Civil War? Were you for De Valera? Were you for Collins or whatever? And to be honest, I thought that was old hat. I thought that was the past. And what I was interested in and I know many of my contemporaries were interested in, was about the future. And I think that that's where we need to be today. I think it is time to leave the politics of the past in the past and start building the politics of the future. And the way I look at it is that the politics of the future is about employment, it's about opportunities, it's about what kind of future we want to build for ourselves. Where do we get employment? How do we get investment to provide the jobs that will give us a future? What type of services do we want to see developed? What type of education system, for example? How does that education system relate to research and innovation and all of the new things that have to be done to build the economy of the future? The issues, for example, that we've been talking about, we hold the presidency of the European Union at the moment, and it involves a lot of meetings and a lot of discussions. But one issue that we've made a priority in that presidency is the issue of youth unemployment. Because there are far too many young people in Ireland, Britain, Northern Ireland, throughout Europe, who cannot get jobs, or who cannot get the jobs for which their education qualifies them. And we've taken the view that the biggest priority right now is to try and secure employment opportunities for young people. And that's why we secured an agreement across European Union states on the idea of a youth guarantee. This is basically the idea that if somebody is 4 months or more out of work, that they get either an opportunity of a job or work experience or training or education. And we got agreement across Europe as well to provide a fund of €6 billion to underpin that. And the question now is, how should we use that? And I think this is really where you come in. Because I think that the generation who have grown up in peacetime in Northern Ireland, who have grown up after the Troubles, I think, and I say this directly to you, I think that you now need to take ownership of the future. And I think you need to take ownership of the politics of the future. And whether that's about what needs to be done to ensure that there's jobs available for you, what needs to be done to ensure that there's a better education system, what needs to be done to ensure that there's a genuinely shared, cohesive society in Northern Ireland. And we know that despite the agreements and the huge progress that has been made at a political level, we still have some problems. We've seen it over the past number of months. You know as well as I do that there are still divisions in our society. And what we need to do is we need to talk about how do we heal those divisions, how do we bring people together and build a genuinely shared society. How can we, all of us, proclaim our own identities, our national identities, where we come from and our traditions, in a way that is respectful and that is respected by each other. And we still have work to do in that area. There is work also, I believe, to do in looking outside of Northern Ireland, looking at where we are, looking at the kind of Europe that we share. Both Britain and Ireland are members of the European Union. And we need, I think, to talk with each other about the kind of Europe that we want to build. And also, I think, the kind of worlds that we want to build, because some of the challenges that we are facing in the future that weren't perhaps high on political agendas or any agendas in the past, the kind of things that we're facing in the future are challenges like the challenge of climate change, the way in which the world that we all share is changing. The fact that between now and 2050, when those of you in this room who are 15, 16 today will be in good, solid middle age. By the time you get to your middle age, there'll be 2 billion extra people in the world. The world will have to produce 60% more food than it does today. but we already know that 25% of that food is going to be wiped out by climate events. These are problems that are not problems that are unique to Northern Ireland. They're problems that we share with people elsewhere in the world, and we have to start addressing how we are going to solve them. So I think that what we need to be thinking about today, as we remember back 15 years ago to the Good Friday Agreement, is the huge contribution that the Good Friday Agreement made to putting the politics of the past into the past and leaving it in the past. And I think what we need to be doing today is addressing the politics of the future for Northern Ireland, for Ireland and Britain, for Europe, and for the wider world. And I look forward to hearing your contributions later this morning to that discussion. Thank you very much indeed.
Should be taught about the Good Friday Agreement. Thank you.
Sorry, could you repeat that last bit of the question? That all schools should be what?
Do you feel that all schools should be taught about the Good Friday Agreement?
Well, I think it's important for us all to understand the background to the Good Friday Agreement. I don't think it's my role as Secretary of State to prescribe exactly what goes into the curriculum, but I think an understanding of Northern Ireland's history, both its recent history and further back into the past, is naturally an important part of anyone's education. And I'm sure that that's something that schools and education ministers take very seriously.
Tánaiste, do you have a view on that? Well, I think one of the problems with history is it often depends on who's telling the history, and that I think has been one of the difficulties in Northern Ireland. In some respects, I suppose the Good Friday Agreement is still a work in progress. So I think it's not just a case of teaching it as an issue of history, but I think it is of working it, building on it, and bringing it more to life. What the Good Friday Agreement basically was about having a shared society. And I think it's in the schools, out of the schools, in society generally, that we need to bring that to life.
Thank you. Paddy.
I'm Paddy McRae from Hazelwood Integrated College. What plans do you have to bridge the gaps that still exist between the main communities within Northern Ireland?
Well, there is some really great work going on at places like the Jethro Centre in Lurgan and many community projects. And I know the executive is looking very seriously about their plans to deliver shared education. They have set themselves the goal of enabling many more children to spend at least part of their time in school learning alongside others from different parts of the community. I think those kind of initiatives are very welcome. They're already underway in many parts of Northern Ireland, and I warmly applaud the work that's being done by the executive to broaden the range of children and young people who can take advantage of those crucially important opportunities to learn more about people from different backgrounds and from different parts of the community.
Well, we already have in place a number of funds which are aimed at supporting the work of reconciliation in society. There's the Reconciliation Funds, the Anti-Sectarianism Fund. There's also the International Fund for Ireland, which we support and which we hope to see continue. In addition to that, as part of the European Union budget, which we are currently discussing, there is a provision of €150 million to be provided by the European Union towards a peace programme, the programme of projects which would be aimed at supporting peace, reconciliation initiatives in Northern Ireland. And we hope that both the British and the Irish government will be able to add something to what is being provided by the European Union, so that there will be a substantial fund of money available to support peace initiatives.
Thank you. Fenton. Fenton there.
My name's Fitton. I live in Ardoy and we still have paramilitaries, interface violence, no opportunity for work, poor housing, policing problems and poverty. How do you suggest that the Good Friday Agreement has impacted on our lives?
Well, it is, of course, as both Tánaiste and I have acknowledged, there are still big issues to be resolved in Northern Ireland, and those living in interface areas often are at the kind of, the cutting edge. If there is sectarian tension, it's often those living in interface areas that feel it in the most difficult way. I think there are two ways to start to address those kind of concerns. The work that the government and the executive is doing to rebalance the economy, to see the economy healing, to start to develop crucially important job opportunities for young people in those kind of areas, and the sorts of projects actually to build mutual understanding and mutual respect that the Tánaiste was just referring to. And of course I know both the executive here takes very seriously, so we know that achieving those two policy goals is vital. But also, I think it's important to send out a message about the crucial importance for the respect of the rule of law as well, and complete condemnation of the continuing role of paramilitaries and the violence and the criminality that paramilitaries are still subjecting their communities to. It's unacceptable, it's deeply damaging for the communities affected, and it should be condemned outright, and I know that respect for the rule of law is something which is a crucial message that we all have to reiterate and repeat.
Yeah, I think the Good Friday Agreement has made a huge difference, because the first, very straightforward level, the level of violence, the amount of killing and injury, which was so much a feature of Northern Ireland society and Northern Ireland life more than 15 years ago. That has changed. Anybody who remembers this city before the Good Friday Agreement and looks at it now will see the many ways in which it has improved. I mean, this building, for example, was just a hole in the ground in 1996, for example, when we were talking about it. But there are still deep divisions in this society. I was struck coming in by the monument to the 15-year-old boy who was killed in, I think it was 2000, Thomas Devlin, killed in 2005. That was well after the Good Friday Agreement. So we still have issues to address. Still too many walls, both physical and in our minds. And I think we have to work to bring those down. I think the provision of employment, improvement of educational facilities, improvement of recreational facilities, that's all part of it. But it's only part of it. We also have to tear down the walls that are also in our heads, in our minds, and in our attitudes. And in many ways, that's a more difficult job to do.
Okay, Caitlin, back there, we have a microphone there.
My name's Caitlin O'Neill and I come from St Patrick's Academy. What do you see as being the biggest accomplishment from the Good Friday Agreement?
I think the biggest achievement of the Good Friday Agreement has been the end of the killing, the end of the injuries, the end of an environment where week in, week out, there were people who were being shot, bombs going off, just that continuum. And in many respects it was a continuum of tit-for-tat killings that were taking place over a long period of time. The decommissioning of the weapons, the fact that Northern Ireland is now a more peaceful society. I think that is its biggest achievement. But President Kennedy, late President Kennedy, once said that peace is something that you have to work at every day, every week, every month. That it's not something that you can ever take for granted. And I think that we need to realise that and to continue to work to make sure that the society here is improved and healed and more at peace with itself.
I agree that the ending of those terrorist campaigns that lasted 30 years is the greatest achievement of the Belfast Agreement and those who signed it. I mean, sadly, there remain security problems in Northern Ireland. There is a terrorist threat that continues, and that impacts on the daily lives, particularly of prison officers and police officers. And they deal with that threat in an incredibly brave and effective way. But, I mean, I don't know if any of you heard the documentary on 5 Live just a couple of weeks ago, and someone there was talking about how, you know, during the Troubles, there were times when people in certain parts of Belfast felt that they were taking their life in their hands just going a few miles away. And so that kind of freedom from fear is something that has been delivered by the Belfast Agreement. And I think it has transformed the way people live their daily lives in Northern Ireland in a way which is tremendously beneficial, and it is always important to value that as a means to sort of make us all determined that we are never going back, that no one ever wants to see a resumption of those kind of terrible times, and we should never ever take the stability given by the political settlement for granted.
You happy enough with that answer, yeah? Daniel?
My name's Daniel from the 174 Trust. What are British and Irish governments doing to challenge our politicians to change their sectarian language and maybe set a better example?
Yes, politicians setting an example. Here. What are you doing to fix that?
Well, I think your politicians do set a good example. I think they're working incredibly hard to fix the Northern Ireland economy. I mean, I think this, again, sort of returning to this building as an example of something which is the creation of the devolution settlement. It's difficult to believe that something of this sort of vibrancy would have been created if we'd still had direct rule from Westminster. I think your politicians are working hard in an incredibly difficult situation. The world economy has gone through some incredibly difficult times over recent years, and of course working in a mandatory 5-party coalition also generates its challenges. So I think that whilst of course there's more work to do, of course there are big issues and challenges still to be resolved, I think that Northern Ireland's political leadership has demonstrated courage in agreeing the Belfast Agreement, demonstrated effectiveness in many of their programmes that they've delivered in government, and I'm sure that they're going to rise to the challenge of dealing with these continuing challenges, whether it's sectarian division or whether it's economic rebalancing, because I think there's a real determination to get a grip on those issues.
Well, yes, I agree with what the Secretary of State has said. The political leaders in Northern Ireland do work together, and we work with them. And it's a difficult job. 5 political parties in the Northern Ireland Assembly, and working together to try and solve the problems of the society and to try and build a better future. But I sometimes think it's a two-way process. I mean, politics, we live in a democratic society. Politicians are elected. And while, yes, politicians have a responsibility to provide leadership and sometimes to face into society and into our electorates and say things sometimes that may not be popular or may be challenging, we're also a product of our society. And, the language of politics is not invented by politicians. The language of politics is the language that comes in many ways from the ground. So I think there is a responsibility on all of us to watch the kind of language that we use, and if politicians are using language that isn't appropriate, perhaps to encourage us to use different words and maybe concepts that are maybe a bit more inclusive.
Okay, they're talking hands. Okay, it's a bit scary. Christy, you got a microphone there, please?
I'm Christy from St Patrick's Academy, Lisburn. Over the past year, we have been working with children from other schools through a project called Changemakers, which we've really enjoyed. How do you think shared education should be offered to the kids today?
Sorry, give me that last bit again about shared education.
How do you think it should be offered to the children today?
Shared education.
Well, I think the executive's right to talk about a sort of diversity of approach. There are many different ways in which schools can engage with the wider community. So there's support from some parents for schools which are completely integrated. But also that's clearly not the only way to ensure that children get a chance to study alongside others from different parts of the community. So participating in joint sporting events, in extracurricular activities, and sharing certain courses, taking certain lessons alongside children from other schools, I think is a great way to enhance and improve mutual understanding between different parts of the community. And obviously education is crucial in building a genuinely shared society in Northern Ireland, and that's why the UK government is working enthusiastically with the Northern Ireland Executive on a package which we hope will provide not only an economic boost for Northern Ireland, but also further initiatives and measures on shared education and other shared society projects. We feel that we can work together because both the government and the executive have the common goal of boosting the economy here and also providing real opportunities to build mutual understanding between community and address those long-standing sectarian divisions that can cause so much tension and unhappiness and damage in Northern Ireland.
Well, I think that parents and families and individual pupils and students, I think, should have the right to choose the school to which they go or to which they attend or to which children are sent. And that's very much, I think, a choice that rests with individual families. My own personal view is that I believe we should have more integrated education. I think that the more that young people are in the same environment from different backgrounds, I think the better for the cohesion of society. As I said, that's my personal view. But it is also as we were talking about the Good Friday Agreement, the agreement did state that there should be support for integrated education. I think that is something that is growing, but it's not confined to schools. I think that the interaction among people is wider than what happens in the schoolyard.
Okay, thank you. Rhys, where are you?
15 years as involving. That's the goal of today, and I hope that's the sort of thing that is a good way to engage young people in understanding and appreciating the Belfast Agreement and what it's achieved.
Rhys, you still have the microphone beside you there. Tell us, where do you see yourself in 15 years' time? If that's not too tricky a question.
Is that it on? Yeah.
Where are your ambitions? Where do you see yourself?
Dental work.
Right. You'd like to be a dentist, what,
Yeah.
here?
Yeah.
Right, and you go to Queen's here and do the
Yep.
dental work here. Can I just see a show of hands from all of the young people? Does anybody here not think that they'll be in this country in 15 years' time? Get the hands right up, right up. Let's see them high. Get them high up. That's quite a few. That's quite a few. Okay, thank you. Sorry, we have, if you don't mind, I'll move on.
No, you should.
Connor, where are you? Connor's down here, is he? Where's Connor? Oh, right. Sorry, yes, you're there. Sorry, Connor.
My name's Connor and I'm from Ardown. And what is the government's strategy for bringing down the peace walls as young people want them down as soon as possible?
Yes, the peace walls. We have miles and miles of peace walls, and we seem to be getting more, and we see them in the news all the time. Can we have it? Do you mind, Thomas, taking that first one, just from your perspective?
Well, I think what's necessary to bring down the peace walls is that the people who live around them and who live close to them have peace of mind. The peace walls exist because people are still nervous or apprehensive. And I think that we need to have a sense of, people need to have a sense of security, need to have a sense of safety. We need to, I think, work on the projects, many of which are already in place, more coming into place, where people work across boundaries and work together. And as I said, bring down to bring down the peace walls. You first have to bring down the walls that people have in their own minds about people from the other side, and that is something. But I think it is something that we need to work at a lot more effectively and probably more urgently.
I agree. It's the only way to see the peace walls come down is to build reassurance and address the fears that people have, those living in interface areas in particular. I think the PSNI is making huge progress in terms of its popular support and its effectiveness in addressing things like antisocial behaviour. But it is sad that there are more peace walls now than when the Belfast Agreement was signed. That is something that we need to work on as a society, and that's yet another reason why we need to start addressing building mutual understanding between communities, so we address the fear that some people sadly do still have about different parts of the community, which may be literally on their doorstep. So if we can address those fears and demonstrate that we in Northern Ireland are perfectly capable of living together, I think that is the best way forward towards seeing peace walls start to come down.
Thank you. Right, well, we're nearly finished up for time, so I'd like to just one more question. Do we have a general question from one of the young people?
Hello,
Sorry, you're too old. Get back. You've got a beard, you don't qualify. Yeah.
I'm Amy Gibbons and I come from Hazelwood Integrated College. What advice would you be able to give a young person who's interested in a career in politics?
This is a good one to finish on.
Well, my usual reaction is don't do it, but I think it's you can make a difference. It's not an easy career option in many ways, but you genuinely have a chance to make life better for people. You genuinely can demonstrate that you're committed to leaving, making life better for people in the future. So I would say that the best way to do it in practical terms is to study hard at school, maybe go on to university if you possibly can, and then get involved in campaigns, join a political party, get engaged in political debates. I think that's the best way to start. And you will, as I say, genuinely, you can, if you go into politics, make a difference. You can end up changing things for the better. So although it comes there are certain sort of a bit of a personal price sometimes gets paid in terms of there's not a great deal of downtime, but it is an incredibly sort of personally sort of rewarding thing to do when you know that actually you've changed things for the better, you've made people's lives better.
I would say don't think of it as a career at all. I would say start with what you believe in and see if you can do something to advance that. That might be through involvement in local community, church, trade union, whatever. And I think if you're good at it and you're making progress, then you'll gradually become more involved in political activity. And you want to change things in your city, you stand for election to your city council. You want to change things in your country, you stand for election to the assembly or for parliament where laws are made. But I would start with pursuing the things that you believe in and the things you need to see changed. I would do it out of conviction rather than as a career.
Don't go into it for the money. Right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. The young people